Hi everyone, this is Koinzell here. So today we have a whole bunch of Ayato changes to talk about. These changes dropped less than 24 hours ago at this point of recording. I actually prepared quite a lot of the content 2 to 3 hours after it was dropped. But I wanted to take more time to consolidate and ensure that the math was right because there were some surprising figures. So anyway, now we have it. I'm going to talk about a list of changes here, what they mean to Ayato's performance, what the changes update with regards to the important notes and assumptions from Math Guide 1 and 2 for the matter in this Math Guide 3, and also the updates to the ER, to the damage figures, to attack sense versus HP sense, comparison against Itto, solo DPS, buff Haran versus PJC, the TLDR, and obviously the Ayato video series. Alright, so first off, let's talk about the list of changes. We have Ayato's base stats being buffed. Well, not all are buffed. You'll see here that there are 2 buffs here and 1 decrease. 1 drop. 2 increase, 1 drop, right? So I'll say this is a welcome change because as mentioned in Math Guide 1, his base attack is a little too low for a 5-star DPS character. Especially since his HP scaling is only very partial. It's more like a good add-on bonus. Just like Miko's EM, should I call it scaling? Yeah. So this pretty much brings him more on par with other DPS characters, 5-star DPS characters. I'm not saying that this base attack is the same as say someone like Xiao who has like 340 plus or 330 plus. But you can't just look at this value. There are other factors to see how the DPS of the character will turn out. Okay. Defense was way too high for non-defense scaling character to begin with, so it's good to get higher HP and attack in return for lower defense. Okay. Next, Ayato's Q. Now, this is actually quite the buff. If you look at the damage buff alone, it's almost 20% increase. It's one of the biggest buff for a skill or burst. And on top of there's also a change here. Instead of giving a normal attack speed buff, it now gives you a normal attack damage, 20% at level 10 from 12% attack speed buff. The duration has also been extended from 15 seconds to 18 seconds, which means that given a cooldown of 20 seconds, there's only a 2-second downtime. That's really good. Now, buff now works for all characters within the field. Oh, right. So to put a bit of things into perspective, okay? C2 Shenhe is the one where you get a 80-second on-field burst with a 2-second downtime. But you need C2 for that, for Shenhe. But Ayato, you C0, you get this. That's really good. Okay. And his burst also gives you something, right? It gives you a normal attack damage boost as opposed to the resistance shred from Shenhe's buff or burst. And the most important thing, the most important change is this. Okay, buff now works for all characters within the field. So out of all these changes for his burst, the most important thing for his Q or burst is the fact that it works for Ayato now as well. Previously, the normal attack speed buff, it only works for other nearby party members. It doesn't work for Ayato. So there's no reason to use his Q while you are using his E. But now it works for Ayato, which means you should use his use his Q, drop his burst, use his burst, then start using your E, and you will gain a normal attack damage 20% bonus to your Ayato. So all in all, this is a very nice series of buffs to his Q. You get increased damage, you get a tangible buff that doesn't require many hits to have an effect, and I'm talking about obviously this, right? Because for attack speed buff, you always need a high number of attacks to really see the difference. Otherwise, you won't be able to see the difference. If something dies before you hit that additional hit that attack speed buff grants you, you're not getting that benefit. But when it comes to normal attack damage bonus, it's there from the very first hit. So That's why I say it's a tangible buff. When comparing a normal damage bonus versus a attack speed buff, the damage bonus is a very tangible buff in comparison. And you also get increased uptime, 15 seconds to 18 seconds. You only have 2 seconds downtime. What crazy thing is this, man? Now with the increased uptime, it should be 26 to 32 strikes now for his burst if I extrapolate from the frame analysis that I did previously. But if you guys really want to know, right, it's very simple. Okay, the first 2 seconds is the burst animation. After you recover, then the strikes start happening. For the remaining 13 seconds, you get 26 strikes. This is about 2 strikes per second. With an exfoliation of 3 seconds, you get 32 strikes. Now, I will also compare the updated Q DPS later, as well as the normal attack buff to his E as well. Okay, I'll factor all these things and we have a final math result too. So I'm very impressed with the buffs to his Q. And more importantly, this to me is the most important thing, right? Like I said, it works for Ayato as well. This is really good, okay? It working for Ayato is a great boost for both his rotation style and for his damage. Okay, next, we have a change here where Ayato's passive now removes the HP scaling on his Q. But he did just get a lot of buffs, right? And this passive is now replaced with this, okay, this line here. If Ayato is not on the field and his energy is less than 40, which is basically half of his energy cost, so if your energy is less than 50% essentially, he will generate 2 energy for himself every second. So basically, HP scaling is gone, it reduces the importance of HP on Ayato, and coupled with the other buffs to Q, I'll show you guys later in the math to see if this is truly buffed or not, in terms of the whole picture. But for sure, with this passive, ER requirement will be reduced with this. It will lead to more crit stats, provided obviously you get them on your artifacts, but yeah, that's a whole other topic. So, that is the passive. Now let's talk about constellation changes. I know this may be less interesting to most players, but let's check it out, alright? So Ayato's C2, the maximum stat count for Wave Flash is still 5. The difference here is that when you have at least 3 Wave Flash stacks, your max HP is increased from 40% to 50%. It's an additional 10% boost, so it helps with his E damage basically. So essentially it's like a increased HP for his E to make up for the removal of HP boost to Q. Let's see how the figures look like later. Nevertheless, still welcome buff, right? Now, Ayato C4. So now, previously I talked about just a couple of moments ago I talked about the buff the burst no longer giving you attack speed buff and it gives normal attack damage buff. Essentially it is swapped with his C4, because now his C4 instead of giving you normal attack damage increase, it gives you 15% increased normal attack speed for 15 seconds. That's the difference here. Why? Because you get a higher number of attack speed. It's increased and it's even bigger, the amount of increased normal attack speed, although it's locked behind C4, so very costly. The duration is extended, and most importantly, the buff works for Ayato. This portion here, this excluding Kamisato Ayato himself, has been removed. So to sum it up, this buff now works for Ayato himself. Instead of normal attack, we get 15% attack speed now, and it's extended from 12 to 5 seconds. So sorry, 12 to 15 seconds. However, I'm a bit dubious or doubtful that the 15% attack speed buff really contributes to anything for Ayato. Because although it can work for him, but given how fast he attacks, coupled with hit lag, I'm not sure whether we can get one more strike than the 14 strikes that we get from his 6 second E right now. But if we can indeed get one strike for this, that would be really nice, because his C4 would then be buffing him instead of just buffing other team members. So that's good. I do hope that it can contribute one more strike, but this is something that if you ever see any theory crafter telling you that it will give you one more strike, it is purely assumption based. This is not something that can be truly calculated before the gameplay is out for us to test. Okay, not entirely hopeful that it will, but if it does increase one more strike, it will be even better for his new artifact. Because the way his new artifacts work is that the more hits, the more strikes you do in your 6-second E, the higher your chance of proccing the RNG effect. And I'll talk more about it in the next video, yeah? So now let's talk about what is arguably the most important change across all of the changes. Because we have base stats in changes, we have his Q talent change, passive, constellations, and now we have his signature weapon. So look at this portion here. You no longer need normal attacks to hit opponents. Your other nearby party members simply need to use their elemental skills. Instead of 5 stats now, it's 2 stats. So in return, each stat gives you 20% instead of 8%. So it works out to be the same, okay? The exact amount of total damage bonus is the same. Just because you see 8 to 20% increase doesn't mean that Haran has been buffed to the heavens. Okay, because there's a corresponding drop in the number of max stats. So it's very straightforward. This weapon now is extremely easy to set up. You just need your other nearby party members to use their elemental skills twice, or 2 of them using it once each. That's it. You will get the 2 stats, you will get your max damage, or normal attack damage boost, which is 40% R1 plus a 12% all elemental damage bonus here, or 24% all elemental damage with a 80% normal attack bonus at R5. So this is fantastic, okay? The clunky 5 normal attack mechanic have been removed. It's replaced by the 2 ally skills, easily achieved through normal rotation. You don't need to waste time forcing in efficient attacks. The total buff is the same, which now pretty much makes this sword really good and a lot more flexible for NA characters in terms of setup. NA characters like Ayato. So yeah, then this weapon is a good state now. This is much better. Alright, so I'm really happy that this change has happened. Now let's move on to talk about the other stuff. Now that we've gone through the list of changes, what each of them mean, let's look at what's the impact is to our important nodes and assumptions. So first off, since we no longer need those clunky 5NA mechanics, your EDPS is simply 6 seconds. You no longer need an additional 3 seconds as the setup time, which is huge for his DPS. Okay, it's mind-blowing how big that difference is. Now, with his Q being increased from 15 to 18 seconds based on what's available now, and a bit of extrapolation, I'll say it's 32 strikes in total. With his Q now providing a normal attack buff that Ayato can utilize, the rotation has now changed to one where Ayato should be using his E in his Q instead of previously where you should not be using his Q during his E. His Q should be used as a sub DPS buff to the other main DPS in the comp. Now, the Q is simply made for his E as well. So it's very simple. Cast your Q, do your 6 seconds E, you have a 6 second E downtime when you switch to your other characters, and then you have the 6 second E on Ayato again. Then you can recast your Q. So the reason why I did not mention the 2 second downtime between after in the last 2 seconds of his, or rather the 2 seconds downtime after his burst ends, is because technically speaking, the 2 second Q downtime is actually offset by his 2 second Q animation, which means that the last 2 seconds of your second E here has no Q buff. Simple as that. But timing wise, it all works out to be a 20-second rotation where you do 2x E full duration plus your Q damage. The full Q damage, assuming you have enough mobs for you to hit, of course. So, this also means that when you use his E during his Q, it's gonna be easier to manage the Mist Splitter stats as well. So Mist Splitter is starting to look pretty good for him too, especially with the Q buff, right? But I refrain from saying whether this weapon is better than PJC or better than Haran until I do the math for it. Okay? The rest of these do not change. Let's talk about the impact to his ER requirement. So I've broken it further down. This portion is the same as Backfight 1, so if you have not already seen that, please do go and see that. I'm not going to cover it here. So Simply, it's very, very simple. Okay, I have done this. This is the ER's breakdown that I have done here. On your first E, this is the amount of energy particle that you will restore, depending on your, or rather the amount of energy you will restore depending on your ER. Then you have your 6 seconds downtime with the new A4 passive, where when your energy is less than 40 or less than 50% of your Ayato's burst energy, you will gain 2 energy every every second. So in 6 seconds is about 12 energy. Obviously there will be some variance here, especially if you are doing a lot of if you are using elemental skills that give you a lot of energy during this duration. It can result in a scenario where you don't get a full 12 energy from these 6 seconds, maybe 10, 8. But you get what I'm trying to say here, okay? Total energy generated. And then you have the second E, and then the total energy just from Ayato alone. Look at that. That's beautiful. I'll say that instead of the conservative 140, I can actually take a conservative 130. Why? Why not 120? Why not even 100? Because although we now have a passive that generates some nice energy while Ayato is off field, you gotta remember that the buff to his Q applying to Ayato himself also means a shorter rotation time overall, because I'm gonna use his Q together with his E instead of using his Q after his E or before, like unlike previously. Because previously, basically your rotation is longer because you are using them subsequently instead of overlapping. Now we are using them overlapping. Your rotation time is shortened. So now basically you only have the 6 seconds here, this 6 seconds downtime here, to regenerate energy, including all your sub DPS, etc. or all your other team members. So since the time to regenerate energy is shorter, I'll take it that we still need 130% ER instead of dropping to say 120% from 140. So just a 10 ER drop. You know, like I say, I'm always conservative with regards to ER, so that if you do need lesser ER, it means that the character will perform even better than my math. Isn't that good news? Eventually. But that being said, it doesn't mean that I purposely chose a worse figure. It's just in the scenario where it can go either way, we will try to take the conservative approach. Yeah. Okay, so this is a really good passive update for him. In fact, if you want me to say, right, the rotation is more than 20 seconds. To be perfectly honest, the rotation is more than 20 seconds. Why? Because you need to include the setup time or doing all the buffs before you cast his Q. The 20 seconds starts from him casting his Q. It doesn't include all the setup time that you will have to buff him. And I'll talk more about those, I'll deep dive more about those later in separate videos. Okay? Now let's talk about what you guys will be interested in, right? The damage figures. Let's look at the updated figures now with all these changes and buffs to Ayato. So within one C6E in 6 seconds, he's dishing out almost 300k damage. It's about 50k per second, which you can see here. 49k per second. It's pretty damn impressive for a solo damage figure. But remember that this is only within his 6 seconds of joy. We have not included all the setup time, etc. All the buff time, etc. And for his burst, it's 203k at C5, and at C0R1 it's 161k. C0R1E is 131k as well. So it's still pretty damn decent, right? C0R1 doing 22k per second. Not too bad. Let's compare that to the, before that, right? So like I said, his DPS is really good now, and the most important thing is that there's no more concept of first and second main DPS. He should be the first and only main DPS now. Okay? So let's compare that to the old Haran figures. So this is the old Haran figure. Look at how low the damage is at C6 in a 9 second E. Why do I call it 9 seconds? Because you have to spend that stupid 3 seconds to do the 5 NAs, right? Yeah, there's no way your damage will be good in that kind of scenario. So, look at the whopping difference here. Okay, look at the whopping difference here. Ignore the burst figure for now. These are key burst figures. So, it's a very substantial boost of 74 to 82% on his E. Just being able to remove the clunky mechanics alone is 50%. It's very simple, right? You take shave off 3 seconds, it's 50% better. Simple as that, from a 6 versus 9 scenario. So the remaining 24 to 32%, since we have like 74 to 82 here, right? Take away 50, 24, 32. But honestly, actual is 16 to 20 if you start from, if your starting point was without the clunky mechanics. So this 16 to 20 or 24 to 32%, depending on how you want to see it, it comes from all the other buffs such as the increased base attack, increased base HP, normal attack damage bonus during his Q. Yeah? All of this. As for his Q, with all the boosts plus the removal of the HP percentage scaling, attack sense still gain a 4 to 7% increase. But HP sense obviously suffered 7 to 11% drop, which is expected, right? Because they removed the HP boost from his passive, the HP boost to Q. So all the more reason not to use HP sense. And we'll look at that in depth right now. Attack sense versus HP sense. Yep, this is the difference. So pretty much the same for his E, really. Pretty much the same. Only difference here is this point, where C2R5 it increased from 5 to 4. Sorry, increased from 4 to 5. So essentially, with the removal of HP damage bonus on Q, the difference between HP sense and attack sense is widened to 27% from 9 to 10. So previously it was 9 to 10 here for his Q. Now it's 27%. So all the more reason not to use HP sense. And for E, no much change other than the C2R5 that I mentioned. So to conclude, very straightforward. Use attack sense. Zero doubt about it, because you are not even getting HP scaling on your burst anymore. Okay? Straightforward stuff. Now let's talk about comparison against Itto solo DPS. And this, I think this and this should be the two most important topic in this math guide. Maybe not so much to some folks on this, but this is important because this tells you where Ayato will stand. So first off, if you look at just his E, just his 6 seconds of E, do you see this? Do you see this? Itto is worse off than Ayato. Wow. But that's the first glance, okay? At first glance, with all the buffs to Ayato, the changes to Ayato, Ayato now has 10 to 12% higher damage than Itto. That's really impressive. But my Itto figures here are actually based on 3 full rotations, i.e. includes the duration where your Itto is not dealing damage, be it the downtime from his burst or the setup time initially for all the buffs. Ayato's figures are super unfair and super skewed towards Ayato because it's just his full 6 seconds of joy. Okay, so I can tell you this is not a fair comparison. So how should we make this fair? Let's take Ayato's contribution during a 20-second rotation to be 2 SE plus his Q. What's the actual DPS? And now remember, I think I should probably put this down. And remember, the rotation will likely take you more than 20 seconds if we factor in the buff to be cast by teammates prior to Ayato. It's actually going to be even more than 20 seconds. But I don't want to go there until I've done the team comp video. And once I do the team comp video, I will also compare against our Itto with full team comp, full team buffs. Because right now, it's kind of unfair to Itto, where I take the full team rotation but without any buffs. Whereas for Ayato, it's not even the full rotation per se. It's okay. I wanted to give you guys a look and feel on where Ayato stands right now, based on this, just based on this, okay? How should I put, a simplified first view, let's put it that way. So with a 20-second rotation, this is what his DPS is like with Haran. Okay, these are damage figures. Now this is no longer 48k, right? Previously you saw there was a 49k. This was the 49k per second that he does in his E, his full 6 seconds of joy. Now, let's hit it back. It's not a full dose of reality yet because I've not included the buffers. Well, I did on Itto. But right now you see that at C6, he is worse off than Itto. This is not me bashing Ayato in favor of Itto. Okay, this is to compare against a top tier DPS. So essentially, Itto is worse off than Ayato, only at C0 and C1. But better at C2 onwards. Why? Because because Itto C2 shortens Itto's rotation. That's why the duration is also lower on Itto. Nevertheless, I'll still say that this puts Ayato as top tier DPS, even if it's better or worse at some constitution comparison points versus Itto. Even if I include the buffer time, buffer duration into his rotation, I do believe that he can still almost match up to Itto. He wouldn't be completely behind Itto. He'll be slightly behind Itto. So I'll think he's still a top tier DPS, unless the setup time is really long. Could be the case, but let's see how it goes. Okay, very dependent on the teammates, really, the comp. In fact, if I take a high duration like 10 seconds, he will fall off quite a bit. Let's see how that goes. But again, remember, this is just solo DPS comparison. Okay, when we do the full comp, the duration, and we start putting in the buffs, you gotta remember that there is a possibility Ayato can gain more from buffs because he has access to 4-piece VV, helping him lower hydro resistance. But for Geocom, there's no interaction between Anemo and Joe. Although obviously there's Goro that buffs Itto even greater. But it's okay. I don't want to go into that until we go into the team con section. But I wanted to take the time to explain here so that you guys can appreciate that the nuances involved in the comparison. Okay? So, I'm honestly not convinced that he can proc consistently even off his ICD. Then just think about Child, man. If you've ever seen Child doing his normal tests, you may be able to wait once or twice on Child, but it's not going to be consistent. So, I don't want to take vape into consideration here. But even without vape, C0 to C1 Ayato has 4 to 7% more damage than Itto, and 3 to 9% lesser at C2+ for solo. Okay, for solo. Let me stress this again. This has not included the teammates' duration buffing time, but Itto's has. And this is what I get for doing a new approach of doing partial or gradual release for Ayato compared to Itto where we did the full. Okay. Unfortunately, I just don't have those figures for Itto, and I'm not going to do extra math for Itto for the sake of Ayato. Right, so at least I hope you guys understand why I'm taking different point of comparison, or rather same point of comparison with some discrepancy. Well, I'll say this is putting C0 C1 Ayato at a top tier DPS, because even if Ayato eventually at C0 C1 drops to 3 to 9%, I'm just saying eventually, it doesn't say that it must be, just to say as an example, as long as he's like 10% behind Itto, I'll still say that he's a top tier DPS for Ayato. So on top of that, Ayato's E attack animations look very flashy and cool, and his C6, I don't know if you guys have seen, the 2 C6 additional strikes actually happens via 2 additional Ayato after images doing the attack. So it looks really nice. Nice. Okay. Oh, and the other thing is, these figures are with 4-piece HOD, not even using his new artifacts yet. So maybe the comparison result may change based on that as well. So next up, The two videos that I'll be most keen to do will be the new artifact math as well as the full team comparison. Okay. Yep. So I hope from this comparison it's clear now that I'll say that Ayato is indeed at a top tier TPS stage right now. Just for solo, I still need to do the full team comparison to really see how his damage measures up with all the full team buffs in versus say someone like Itto. Alright. Now let's talk about the buff Haran versus PJC. So these are PJC first main damage figures updated based on the Ayato changes because there are more than just Haran, right? There are a lot of Ayato buffs as well. So these are the updated figures. You have your damage figures, okay, C6, C5, Q, C0R1 Q, and C0R1 E. Okay, these are figures. This is the DPS in the 6 seconds of joy as well as 18 seconds of burst. And this is the percentage difference. You see the red figures? The red figures imply that PJC is better. So why is that the case? With all the buffs to Haran, it's not surprising that Haran performs better than PJC for Ayato's E. In all scenarios. In all scenarios, Haran is performing better than PJC. It's ranging from 6 to 16%, 6 to 16% for attack sense. And we should only look at attack sense for Haran at least, because we already established that attack sense is more important, right? HP sense is not. Wait, this is 128 ER. My apologies. This should be 128 ER. Now, the only reason I'm using 128 and instead of 130 is because of the way my math is. There's the average figure that I'm taking, so it kind of averages out to 128, but not to worry. Within the same number of rows, you can hit 130. Okay? So it's still the 130 target that we talk about in the ER section. So 6 to 16% better, where Haran is better than PJC. For Ayato's E, 6 to 6%, 6 to 16% better. The interesting result here though is that even with the HP percentage bonus gone from his Q, all the buffs to his Q actually results in the PJC being 5 to 18% better than Haran on his Q. Just think about it, the Q got a huge attack talent buff, right? The talent modifier, the multiplier, sorry. So what does PJC give over Haran? PJC gives you more attack because of the HP bonus effect. It really does. Your end attack is really higher, even if your base attack is lower. Because this is a unique case where we are not doing a lot of attack percentage roll, we are doing more CRCDs rolls where we can. So with one weapon being stronger on E, and the other being stronger on Q, PJC, Haran, what is the final conclusion between the two weapons? For that, again, we have to go to the 20 seconds rotation, right? Where now it makes sense to use Q to Q together with E. And let me repeat again, the 20 second rotation does not include buff setup time. Okay, like Banner casting his burst, Kazuha casting his E and Q, etc. Now, we have a 20 second rotation here. This time round, this is for PJC. These are the figures. If you guys remember the figure for Haran, it's really close. I gotta say, this was the reason why I had to double check my math. This result kinda surprised me as well. I did not expect that the buffs to Ayato's Q made such an impact for PJC with regards to his burst. And then to his overall DPS, because now you use the burst together with the E. So Haran is now only better than PJC by 1 to 4%. Okay, 1 to 4%. And 1% is at C6. At C0 is 3 to 4%. It's amazing, right? By the way, when you see this, please do not think that R5 is only 1% better than R1. It doesn't work that way, okay? This is a comparison of R1 Haran versus R1 PJC and R5 Haran versus R5 PJC. And please ignore the HP sense result. I know it's all negative. It says that PJC is better, but this is different. This is, in the first place, we've already established that attack sense is better than Haran. So ignore this. Let's look at this portion. So even with Haran's rework, because of all the buffs to Ayato's Q and the change in rotation allowing Q to be used with E, PJC is actually really close to Haran for Ayato. It's really close, 1 to 4%. It's good as the same, right? More or less. So if you have a level 90 PJC now, you don't really need to pull for Haran. Simple as that. So if you happen to pull on Kagura's Verity, for Kagura's Verity on Miko's weapon banner, and you got a PJC instead of Verity, I have good news for you. This is a very good weapon for Ayato. In fact, this is the closest I've seen between a 5-star weapon and its signature weapon. 1 to 4%. That's super close. Honestly, it makes me wonder if more changes are to come. Like, if Hoyoverse wants to improve their sales banner, they would want to make this weapon better, or at least the overall result better. It may not have to be the weapon being buffed directly. It may be some changes to Ayato such that PJC will perform worse than Haran. But let's see how that goes. Okay, I'm not sure whether there's enough time in the beta for them to change. Maybe. But as of now, they are really close. So if you have PJC and you can afford to give it to Ayato, then you really don't need to pull for Haran. So that's good news. At least for the PJC havers, yeah? Alright, so that did go on a little longer than I wanted. Now let's talk about the TLDR session with regards to all the latest changes for Ayato and where he stands now. So first off, there are several strong changes for him this time. Increased attack, increased HP, increased Q damage, increased Q duration, Q providing a any damage bonus that he can enjoy. Haran reward to be fantastic, 0 clunkiness, higher overall damage bonus than Miss Peter even, at least for his NA. So these are the changes. Now, solo wise, C0 to C1 Itto falls off against him by 4 to 7%, while Itto is still better than Ayato by 3 to 9% at C2+. So this means that just looking at solo damage, he is at top tier DPS level. But bear in mind though, once we factor in team buffs, the time taken to do the team buffs, as well as the full team comp, the comparison result may change. Because right now my Itto figures have included it, but my Ayato does not include this yet. The duration, at least the time. The buffs are not included, but the time is included. So yeah, I mean, it's because I've taken a change in my approach, where Itto math usually I previously did like almost like a big bang approach where I cover a lot, whereas Ayato we are really doing it in bits and pieces, kind of like agile delivery methodology. Okay. Okay, let me put it in a more layman manner. I'm trying to do Ayato math like how Hoyoverse is releasing Inazuma Islands. Okay, Inazuma Islands. Islands are also batch by batch, right? Yeah. You got your Watatazumi Island and Seira Island later after the first 3 Inazuma Islands. Then we have Tsurumi, then we now have Enkanomiya. So same kind of concept. So which is the reason why I don't have a 100% fair comparison between Itto and Ayato. Right now, it's skewed towards Ayato. But once we factor in team buffs and team comp, I will have the full 100% fair comparison. And I hope you guys stay tuned for that. Let's see how he fares. But as of now, just looking at solo damage, yes, I'll say Ayato is at top tier DPS level. Even if you disagree, you say that he's not at top tier, he will still be like the top of the very top of the next tier, or maybe the bottom within the top tier. Okay, worst case kind of scenario. But right now, yes, top tier. And also, remember, I have not used the new artifact as well. This is based on 4-piece HOD. So, more to consider, more to come. And I'm still not convinced he can prot Vic consistently off Sky City. A fast attack Hydro NA character is very unlikely to be the one doing the forward Vic. Just think about Chartman. Okay? I don't want to go too much detail into this. But for my math, I'm definitely not going to include Vic for him. I really do not believe that he's able to prot Vic consistently. I mean, Hoyo is not going to give you that broken of a character. Because even without Vic on his solo damage, he's at top tier. Can you imagine if you can really vape every hit or even consistently off ICD? I doubt so. I mean, it's the same thing, right? Look at Yomiya. She can vape on her 3rd and 5th NA. But I don't recommend using vape for her as well. You are still better off overall with a mono pyro. Alright? So for his E, Haran is better than PJC by 6 to 16%. For his Q, Haran is worse than PJC by 5 to 18%. For 20-second rotation, which is 2 SE plus 1 Q, which has not included the buffers, remember, let me repeat that again. Haran is better than PJC by only 1 to 4%. So if you already have a PJC for him, you don't need to pull for Haran. However, this is the closest between weapons I have seen, so it may warrant further changes from MiHoYo or HoYoverse. So again, if you don't already have PJC, don't pull. Please don't pull until the very last day of the banner. At least see if there are more changes to come, because like I said, this is really the closest I've seen between a existing 5-star weapon versus a new signature 5-star weapon. And knowing HoYoverse, right, they would want to make sure that the weapon, the signature weapon at least, Haran, is attractive so that they can increase the sales for it, right? So yeah, more changes to come. And the changes need not be just buffing Haran, it can simply be a change to make it such that PJC is worse off than Haran, as simple as that. Alright, I hope this TLDR has been helpful to you guys. I hope the math that I shared has been helpful to you guys. So now we know that with all the rebuffs, not just to Haran but to him overall, he is now a top tier DPS. And PJC is actually only 1 to 4% off from Haran. A very interesting result, I would say. Okay, Ayato video series, this is pretty much the same as what I have shared in Math Guide 2, because this Math Guide 3 that we are doing right now is a new insert into our series here. Since there are new changes, so we'll have to do it, right? So next up, I will focus on a new artifact. In fact, while I was waiting for the changes to drop yesterday, I was thinking about how I wanted to approach the math for the new artifact because of the whole RNG factor. I've already decided how to do it, and I'll share it to you guys in the next video. Okay? And how I reached the assumption of like how many hits will we actually get the added damage bonus. And the biggest and hardest video will be the 10 coin rotations, and we'll include other weapons, Mid-Splitter, the F2P weapons as well, 4-star weapons as well. Once again, let me know in comments if there are any specific math you would like, and I'll see if it can be done. You can join me over at Twitch where I answer almost every question there too. Okay, this is my Twitch link, the link is also in the description as well. So if you like the content, remember the video and click subscribe for more, and I sincerely hope that it's helpful to you guys. Yeah, bye.